At least 7 people, including 2 police officers, have been killed and hundreds of others wounded in more than a week of violence sparked by the controversial voting reforms in France's Pacific territory of New Caledonia. The French government has sent in thousands of extra police forces over the past week to help restore calm. The French President Emmanuel Macron, on a day-long visit to the archipelago on Thursday, declared a pause in the reform and also conceded that more talks are needed. Additionally, France is accusing Azerbaijan of interference and of being behind the protests and violence after Azerbaijani flags were seen alongside the Kanak symbols in the protests. So what really is happening in New Caledonia? Our next report gets you more details.
New Caledonia, home to some 270,000 people, is one of several French overseas territories left over from colonial times. The restive archipelago, which lies between Australia and Fiji, has been a French territory since 1853. In the worst unrest since 1980s, the French territory has been rocked by days of deadly rioting over constitutional reforms bitterly opposed by the indigenous population. Kanaks, who have led the protests, constitute 41% of the population. Currently, voting in the territory is restricted to indigenous Kanaks and those who have arrived from France before 1998. Since 1998, more than 40,000 French citizens have moved to New Caledonia. The planned reform would enable more French residents to vote, including any who have been in New Caledonia for at least 10 years. Kanaks are worried that their political power would be diluted and any future independence referendum harder to achieve.
We have been lied to for years and years. They have lied to our ancestors. They have lied to our elders through the various arrangements that have been made. We are on our 3rd agreement and it is the longest. We are tired of not being recognized.
In a hastily arranged visit on Thursday, French President Emmanuel Macron landed in New Caledonia's capital, Nouméa, seeking an end to more than a week of looting, arson and deadly clashes. He stopped short of withdrawing the voting reforms altogether, but promised to use the following weeks to try and reach an overall political deal regarding the island territory's future.
Je me suis engagé à ce que cette réforme
I made a commitment for this reform not to be implemented by force in the current context, and that we would give ourselves a few weeks to be able to allow for a return to calm, the resumption of dialogue, with a vision towards a general agreement. This should follow the following steps. The first is, as part of this commitment, I ask all the leaders explicitly to call for the lifting of barricades. Once the lifting of the barricades is in effect and clearly observed, the state of emergency will be lifted. Third, political dialogue should resume immediately.
Le dialogue politique doit reprendre immédiatement.
France has a sizable Armenian diaspora of nearly 650,000 people and has sided with Armenia in its conflict with Azerbaijan over the disputed breakaway in Nagorno-Karabakh region. Consequently, tensions have simmered between Paris and Baku, with Baku critical of French colonialism in overseas territories. At a time when Paris is struggling to quell the protests, some 17,000 kilometers away, a diplomatic spat with Baku is likely to complicate the situation even further.